All right. So what we're going to do today is teach a very simple command.
Okay.
And the reason for the food is to start getting you used to pairing negative and positive.
Okay.
Because when we start doing the tough stuff, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Okay.
I know you did positive before.
Yeah.
But positive alone doesn't do much.
Okay.
We need to have a balance. Okay?
Yeah.
So this will start getting you familiar with it. Plus with all this heavy snow and stuff, I'm not expecting, I'm not sure how it looks by you, but this at least buys you a week.
Yeah.
And then the only thing with the heel is you're not going to have a formal cue, which is fine. Just keep doing what you've been doing. That's something we can add on. It's not a problem.
What's the formal cue?
Like the actual word of heel.
Okay, so I've actually been doing that.
Okay.
So I try to walk him as much as I can, but he won't go out for very long. So when we first get outside, I live in an apartment, I say go pee, which he already knows, and then he goes pee. And then I bring him and like sort of rack him up and say heel, and then he knows it's time to walk nice. And then at the end I say break, and then he runs inside.
Gotcha.
It's cold. So we've kind of been doing that just to distinguish between when we're doing what thing.
Okay.
And I've been practicing with him inside.
Okay, like in the hallway?
Yeah. So I don't know that he knows the command yet, but I think it's more for myself.
Yeah, and so dogs don't need words. Like they'll assume things by default. So like for instance, if I have a dog that knows the concept well, if I just press the button to get the contraction, boom, it just come on over, right?
Okay.
But for the human, they're like, well, how does the dog know? I'm like, trust me, they know, but humans are so word-based that it really helps us out. So it's not a problem. Just keep doing what you're doing.
Okay.
And then at some point we'll come back and revisit it.
Okay.
Because there's more specific stuff to it. But does he have any kind of bed command? Like go to your bed, go to place, or anything like that?
I mean, he sort of knows go to bed.
Okay, which is
I say that, I don't know. He does.
like you use something like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're actually going to teach today, but we're going to put pressure behind it. Okay. And it's the simplest thing. You can work on it inside. It's meant for duration, like extended control and stuff. But really, it's just to get you used to using remotes and feeding at the same time. Okay. Now, because we're putting him under pressure, there might be a possibility that he does not take food. Okay. So if that happens, what we'll end up doing is every time you work with them, you're gonna plan on him using food. So if you end up sending him to the bed and you tap him and he goes and you go to feed him and he just turns away, you just put the food away, you do your training, and then maybe you try again at the end. Okay. And eventually you keep trying that every time you work with him. So at some point, hopefully he takes the food. What does that tell you?
That he's less stressed.
He's less stressed, he's more comfortable now, right? Because once we start delving into behavior and correcting the defensive responses, this at least already sets up a foundation. It's something you've worked on so that by that point we can pair negative and positive very easily, as opposed to just negative and trying to use positive, but he's not taking it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So we're like mentally preparing him for the harder stuff.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So what's his baseline number been?
I've been starting at like 10. I have found him to be more sensitive to it. Like he's yipping at like 12.
Okay.
I think because I figured out how to put it on a little bit better.
A little bit more secure, sure.
So I've been starting at like 8 or 10.
Okay. If you find that he's still a bit too sensitive, there's always, I think I mentioned last time, that comfort adapter. It just covers more area, and it also muffles the power a little bit. Okay, so if I have a dog that's like super sensitive, one of the things we'll do is put an adapter to help kind of take away some of that power.
The yip means it's like a little high, right?
Yes and no. It can mean it's high, or it can mean it's a surprise. Okay, so like yesterday I had a dog that was a nothing, and then like all of a sudden just yipped out of nowhere. Yeah. And the owner was like, oh my God, like it just caught the dog off guard. So, but after you work with him more, and this gives you another thing it becomes familiarity, right? Yeah. How often are you doing it? How often is he actually getting contact? Because like let's say you think you're getting contact for like 10 minutes, but you're not, and then all of a sudden you get contact. What? Yeah. Okay. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. So this will at least give you something, again, to keep conditioning him with. And he
knows.
Yeah, he already knows the space. So let's go to have your remote ready. Okay. And then when we do treats here, I break these up into like quarters.
Okay, I'll break them a little smaller.
Yeah, and you can do it like, just as you're feeding them. Because what we want to be able to do is repeat this many times and not have them get full, right?
Right, I also don't want him to get fat because he's kind of old and little.
Sure.
not to be vain, but that is very concerned about that.
How much does he eat a day?
He eats 1 cup of light food, about 100 grams,
Okay, that's it?
and then a bunch of treats. I reduced it because he's eating all these treats for the e-collar.
So how much does he weigh?
18 pounds.
18?
She says she wants him at like 17, 16.
Okay.
I think he's just old and he's not going to lose anything, but
Well, you know, the metabolism slows down.
I know. So he's not eating a lot, but he's not, I mean, we can have that.
Is he free fed?
Huh?
Is he free fed?
What does that mean?
Meaning you leave the food out all day?
No, he eats it immediately.
Okay.
But he's always done that.
Okay.
Like he's starving.
Mm-hmm. He's got a good food drive.
Yeah, I think that's a frat house habit. Okay. Like that's enough. Put it in my pocket.
Yeah, welcome to the life of a dog trainer. Treats in your pockets, and then you
I
find
do
out
have
days
treats
later.
in all my pockets. I was at my friends and they just came pouring out of them.
Oh, really? So this is going to be super simple.
Okay.
So I'll explain it, then I'll have you do it. So I'm going to have you work around about a foot away, which is 1 square. So if you'll be up here, okay? And what you're going to do is you have your leash a bit short, and you're going to start tapping first.
Okay.
After about 2 to 3 taps, if we see no response from Duke, you're going to keep tapping and then gently put leash pressure towards the bed.
Okay.
Now, because this is unknown to him, you might see him resist. If that happens, we just brace a little bit, and you want to go down so that you have a more straight pressure as opposed to an angled pressure, right? Going up like that, we want it straight like that. And then keep tapping until he pops on. Once he pops on, you can mark it with good, and then grab a treat and then offer it. Okay? And then once he takes it, wait a moment, cue the word break, and then you'll move backwards. Duke should move towards you. You'll come back to represent him to the space. If he hops on, don't allow him to. Okay? Because we want him to go in response to the e-collar.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what we're trying to teach him here is pressure on. He goes here. Once he goes, pressure off and reward. So then the e-collar starts to balance out a bit, where it's not just pure pressure. He's like, oh, it goes one, like the heel exercise teaches him how it turns on, turns off, right? But now that we're adding in food, it just helps him interpret it a bit better. Okay?
So it's not really negative. It's not like a punishment. It's more just a signal.
Yeah. So e-collar, what we're trying to teach it to him as a line of communication. Okay. So last week, even though he was kind of jumpy and edgy, it's because he's not meant to have his muscles contracted. It's completely foreign to him. He's never had it in his life, right? So that's why you saw all those like responses. But we have to work him through it so he understands like, okay, like the only way that this will go away is if I just comply. So here, we're kind of just building off of that.
Okay.
But adding in the food, again, because later on I know we're going to use it, pending he accepts it. But it helps just clarify, like, e-collar is not bad, okay? Like it's telling you, if I tap once and he just hops there and I feed, then that's all it is. It's just one tap, boom, feed. Okay, so then he goes, oh, you're telling me that if I respond like this, it'll go away even faster and I'll get food out of it? And that's where like the balance comes from.
Okay.
Okay, questions?
Yeah.
So
You're
you're
gonna have to remind me what I'm doing while doing it, but no.
okay, so go ahead, yeah, right there. So you're about a foot away, which is good right there.
How high do you want me to start?
What's your number currently?
8.
We'll start at 8.
Okay.
So go ahead and tap. Tap. Yeah, good. Now as you're tapping, tap, start to pull towards the bed. Tap. Tap. Good. And then now you're gonna feed.
Good.
And actually what we can do, want to give you some treats here? We'll tag team.
Okay.
To make it a little bit
Break some
easier.
of those.
I charge extra for breaking up treats. It's a joke.
Huh?
I said I charge extra for breaking up treats. All right, now he hopped off here, right?
Yeah.
So technically,
Which we didn't want.
Which we didn't
Sorry.
want. It's okay. You're distracted. But just going forward,
It's only when I say break and then
that
it
he
comes
should
off.
come off. Correct, right?
And I
Go.
don't tap then, I just.
Correct. Break means your job is done.
Okay.
Okay, so you're gonna bring him a little bit more forward and tap, tap, and then towards the bed. Tap. Good. Okay.
Okay, break.
There we go. Good. We're gonna keep repeating that.
Okay. Is this too high or is this a good?
No, 8 is working well.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks good. Yeah. Good.
Good. Okay, break. Dude, you got my hands all mixed up here. Come here. Okay.
Right.
Good boy. He doesn't like you as much as me. Break. Oops, sorry.
Let's try that again.
Okay. Good boy. Good boy. Okay, break.
Good. We're gonna repeat that 5 more times.
Okay. It's funny, I used to like him on my right, now I like need him on my left, or I can't.
Oh, really? Yeah, you get used to it. Right.
Good boy. Okay, break.
Good.
Good boy. Oops, sorry. I dropped your treat. Good boy. Okay, break.
3 more. Right.
Good boy. Good. Okay, break.
Good.
Good boy.
The
Okay,
last
break.
one.
Break.
Good.
He's like anticipating it.
Good.
Good boy.
Which is why we stall there, because you want to make it very obvious that the tap is what he's responding to
Okay,
go
right.
to the place, right?
He actually does this when I'm walking him now in the hallway, which is like a fixed space. He knows I'm gonna turn around,
Oh,
so
sure.
he starts to.
Curve around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now he's hopping here, right? So you see how his behavior is starting to relax a bit more. So that's why we're doing this here. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is just start kind of building off of this.
Okay.
So you can see, of course, with the holding, how he's anticipating. So you're correct by just waiting, not allowing, and then eventually you would tap, and then immediately he would send. Right. So all that was good. Now we're going to try to make this more difficult.
Okay.
What you're going to do is don't worry about the heel command, like him sitting or anything like that. We do left just because it's habit, right? But you're going to walk around and like you'll come to a stop. Like for instance here. Wait a moment, do the tap, he should send, and then feed, right?
Okay.
So everything's staying the same, except now you're going to be rotating around the mat, sending from different angles.
Okay.
Okay?
Break. Oh, hold on. I'm getting ready for you, dude. Okay. Good boy.
And instead of you
Okay,
moving
great.
forward, I'm going to have you anchor.
Okay.
Okay? So he is responding to the call, because I saw him shudder and then move forward. But we want to, so you're going to be here, and he just goes, as opposed to the step forward with him.
Okay.
Because he'll start reading you more than that.
Okay.
So and then we're going to start moving this back further to make it super obvious.
Okay.
A little bit of leash pressure. Yeah. Right there. Perfect.
Good boy. Break. Good boy. Break.
Good. We'll do 2 more.
Good boy. Break. Good boy.
And 1 more.
Break.
Is this food dry food? So cool. Good.
Do you think I'm not feeding him enough? Okay.
Why do you say that?
Because you were like surprised by the quantity.
At the cup? No,
Yeah.
because
Break.
I had a 26-pound chow
Oh, boy.
mix, and she ate a cup.
Oh, it's light adult
food,
food.
yeah.
He was eating less, but then. Break. Sorry, I got distracted. Good boy.
I don't think he's overweight.
Well, I don't really either.
No. I mean, dachshunds but he's like a shorter dachshund though.
Do you think he's a mix? He's kind of tall, right?
Yeah, like dachshunds are way longer.
Yeah.
You know, at least another, I would say about 3 to 4 inches there.
I mean, I think this is just his, like, he's not the most svelte he's ever been, but he's older. I just think this is how he is.
Yeah, no, I don't think he's overweight. You know, maybe he could go down to like 17, 16, but I think he looks fine.
Okay, well, thanks. Great.
Because the other thing you can do is, if the concern is, of course, his weight, is you can use the kibble for this as well. So it's not always, you know, treats.
Yeah.
And I would suggest you actually do that because it actually gives you more of a window to work with him.
Okay.
The question about this so far, is this all making sense?
Yeah, it is.
So the other thing that we're going to do now is we're going to start being more strict about things.
Okay.
So sometimes, and he's been doing it less and less as we repeat this, he jumps on you, right?
Yeah.
Where he's looking for comfort. And your response is to do a light knee to knock him off balance, right? What I would do now is tap him.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is you're going to keep, when he jumps on you, allow him to, and you're going to tap, okay? And we're not going to use the leash.
Okay.
We're going to continue to tap until he removes himself. Once he removes himself,
Reward. Okay.
Okay, so what we're telling him is, if you jump on me, remote's gonna go off, but then when you just keep your paws on the ground, you get fed. Because we're delving into behavior now, okay? A very simple behavior, because he's going, Mom, help me, and you're going, I'm not gonna help you,
Yeah.
okay? So that later on, again, we're trying to take every opportunity where we can remote him for something, but then balance it with food to just clarify for him what it means.
Okay.
So here, when he's thinking, hey, I need you, and he's being corrected for it, and he goes, okay, and he gets fed for it, he's like, oh, remote meant here to stop doing something. Right now, we're teaching him to do something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And when it comes to defensive responses, that's something we're going to need him to stop doing.
Right.
So that's where that's going to come into play, because again, it just builds familiarity.
Okay.
So now what we're going to do, all that looked good, is we're going to start to space it out a little bit further.
Okay.
I'm going to have you go about 2 squares back.
Okay.
Okay? Are you ready?
Can I go the other way?
Yeah. Right, good.
Oh boy. Oh.
Good, he's still taking it.
Break.
Good.
He's thinking about it.
Good.
Break. Let's go the other way now.
Right. Good.
Oop. Good boy. Break. Oh.
Oh, look at this guy. Well, parkour.
What's the right response here?
Here, you can tell him off,
Off.
and then lightly pull
Get
forward.
down.
Lightly pull forward, and tap, tap, tap. You're going to keep that pull constant. Tap, tap, tap. A little bit more pull. Pull, pull, tap. Try pulling downwards. There you go. Yep, and then beat. So you're taking any little opportunity, right? Because you're saying, hey, get off of there. And you're using purely pressure, and then once he responds, then you add the reward. So this is a bit different because it's not being offered as a bribe, so to speak. It's literally like being paid,
Yeah.
right? When I tell you to do something and you do and you comply, here you go. As opposed to using everybody
Yeah.
with a food like this, okay?
Okay. Yeah, I know it too.
Good.
Good boy. Okay, break. Oh, let's see. Good boy.
Here, just a couple more.
Okay, break.
Good.
Good boy. me break. Nope, off.
Good. Now what you're gonna do here is you're gonna keep him there. Yeah. Right. And go ahead and have a seat here.
You want me to drop the leash?
You can hold the leash. Okay. Good. Yep. And every time he tries to get off, yep. Yep, correct, good. You're just gonna do that. We're not gonna reward here.
Okay.
Okay? Yep. Perfect. Yep. Yep. Good. Yep. Right. Yep. Right.
I'm all excited now.
Yeah. Right. Go ahead and go to 9. Right. Good. So what's happening here, as you can see the tail wagging and everything, is he's going into a bit of a drive. Are you familiar with drive?
No.
You'll hear it like prey drive, food drive, toy drive.
I can see his face.
Yeah. It's when the dog gets stimulated
Oh.
for something, right? So here, because of the food, because he's being fed now, it counters the negative. Since the negative is relatively low still, the positive has a bit more leverage, so it's making him excited. So then he's like, you know, like I want more. Also, him wanting to be with you, because good, because you are the relayer of those treats. So he's just getting excited about it, right? So here, this is why I typically don't do food, because some dogs have crazy food drive that is hard for the owner to put them into that stimulated state, but then also control them with the collar. So usually we just remove all that stuff. So here, he's doing really well. Obviously, I think a pretty big difference from when we started to now, right? How relaxed he is.
He's gotten used to it. It's gotten a lot better.
Good.
Yeah.
And then with this, it's going to get even better. So with this command here, obviously we're doing it for this purpose, but just so you know, this is meant for extended use. Okay, so like if you ever wanted to take Duke with you to a restaurant or something and not worry about where he's at, you could bring like a towel with you or whatever, and you can pop it on the ground, you tell him to go there, and then you enjoy brunch with your friends or whatever, and he's there being a good boy. This is very simple because I don't care if he sits, stands, or lays down. As long as he doesn't jump off. Correct.
Okay.
And here we use an elevated dog bed, of course. It can be a towel, it can be a blanket, it can be a dog bed, it can be an ottoman, it can be a chair. It just has to be something that has a perimeter. Okay, so you couldn't send them to the corner and say place, because where does it end? Right? It ends that way, but coming this way, there is no kind of defined area. I did have a client who had a St. Bernard and didn't have a dog bed for him because he just drooled all over the place. So they used painter's tape on the floor, and they just made a box on the floor to like, I'm like, yeah, I was like, as long as there's a perimeter, like, you know, the dog recognizes it, it works, okay? So, this exercise, what we're teaching here is what we call the send. Sending him to an object, okay? And then we have the don't move aspect. The don't move aspect, the don't move aspect is something that you do, like, let's say if you're gonna work from home, if you're going to watch TV or eat dinner or whatever, anytime that you're going to just be stationary for a bit, you can do this. Okay. So this kind of, you know, go to the bed, break, you would do a couple times a day, 2 to 3 minutes, pretty short, and that's just to get them comfortable with getting the tapping going. So like what we're seeing now. You're about 2 to 3 feet away, you tap him, and for the most part, he's pretty direct, right? So it's very clear and obvious, he knows what to do in response. And that's the intention of doing these back to back. Tap, 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 there you go, good. Good. This part is to test his patience, okay? So, most people with their dogs, it's like a free-for-all in the home.
Yeah.
There's no real structure in the home, right? Which I get. But this, so like with the heel, the leash reactivity stuff, like we need structure on the walk in order to have that not happen.
Yeah.
So if we're in the home, if it's also a free-for-all, and then it's like, I need you to behave when I pick you up, and that's the only time you need to behave, well, it's gonna make it difficult, right? Because it's a very small percentage of the day. Whereas here, you have something that you can practice on a regular basis for an extended period of time, so that he gets familiar with structure and discipline within the home.
Yeah.
Okay? So here, if I know we're not gonna move for an hour and a half, 2 hours watching TV, what I do is if I'm sitting on the couch, I take the dog's bed, I plop it right next to me, and I replace them, and he'd be on the leash in the beginning, and I just watch TV. And like 30 minutes goes by, he gets impatient, he tries to hop off. I don't say anything, I just start tapping, a little bit of leash guidance, he goes back, I go back to watching TV. It's like right now we're having a conversation, and about 2 to 3 times, he's gotten impatient, he's getting impatient now, and he's wanting to come off, right?
Yeah. This is pretty typical. He'll figure out exactly how far he can go and then just stay right there.
Yes. Now here, we can actually correct this.
Should I? I mean...
Right, and that's going to be the next thing here. So what does this tell you?
That he's like, I mean, he's excited and he's kind of like wants to see how far he can go.
Correct, right? So what we're going to do here is I'm going to have you stay seated. Is you're going to start tapping on your collar. It's going to flush him off.
Okay.
And instead of standing up, I'm going to have you keep tapping, if anything, choke up on your leash to pull towards the bed.
Okay.
So he goes from here to there. Does that make sense? Okay. Tap. Now tap. Like that. Okay. Wait a moment.
His foot's on the...
Yeah. Tap. Wait a moment. Okay. And then relax. Good. Wait a moment. Alright. So you can see how he's, there you go. So here he went from 2 paws on the edge to 1 paw on the edge to thinking about it and then retracting a bit, right? But you can still see he's in what we would call an alert state. Okay, he's still actively wanting to go to you. So give a tap. 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 Good. Right? Tap. Tap. Good. Wait a moment. Wait a moment. Tap.
So we want him to like sit and relax.
Yes. Go down to 7. Tap. 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 Right. There. Okay. He's still looking at you. And this isn't a sit. What is this?
I don't know.
You said it earlier. We want him to sit
Relax.
and relax.
Okay.
Okay. So obedience and behavior. Obedience is superficial. It's just physical control. So earlier we placed him. He was on there, but mentally you can see how he was wanting to be off, wanting to be with you. That's what we would call behavior mode. Okay. So you can start talking deeper with him, and he had his paws on, and I said, you're gonna tap him, he's probably gonna flush off, right? That's exactly what happened, and we tapped him and he went back on again. Because in order for him to clarify why that tap is happening, he has to figure it out, right? Because we can't explain it to him. So his first assumption is gonna be, I got tapped on the bed, maybe I'm not supposed to be on the bed anymore. He gets off, he still gets tapped. He goes, crap, I'm getting tapped still. He jumps back on the bed and disappears. He's like, wait a minute. He's like, I just got tapped for being on the bed, but then when I jumped off, I kept getting tapped, and when I jumped back on, it went away, right? And we did it again. It repeated, right? The same cycle. Then I think on the 4th one, he got tapped, but then kept within the space and started circling around. Then he would wait, but you could still see where he was like this. And he tapped again, and we repeated about 2 to 3 more times. And then we got the sitting state, and now we have the shaking. Okay, do you know why we have shaking now?
Is that stress or confusion?
Yes,
Okay.
because we're being more strict now. So when we do e-collar stuff,
He might also be cold, but it's
but he
probably
didn't start.
stress.
I'll say he didn't start shaking until now.
Okay.
Earlier he was like this. He was completely relaxed and like just like alert and confident.
Yeah.
And that was because of the food, which I wanted the food to do.
Yeah.
But you know, behavior work isn't pretty. Okay. This is the stuff. Like I'm trying to balance things out with the food, but at the same time I know I have to press him to get to like these things in order to deal with the other stuff, right? So all you did was just be a little bit more strict because he was playing a boundary. You know, it's kind of like with kids, like, I'm not touching you, I'm not
Yeah.
touching you, you know? It's the same kind of concept. It's like, I'm not off the bed, but I'm, you know, I'm around here. And like, nope, we're not gonna allow that because that bit of gray area will work against you, okay? So
it's gonna be worse than this when we do the touch sensitivity stuff.
potentially, yeah. It could be worse, it could be the same, it could be easy, I don't know. But that's why we start doing hard stuff now.
So he learns like what
Yes.
we're doing.
Because you're exposing them. Most people would think, oh, we're gonna just jump straight to the touching and stuff. I don't know, we have to expose the dog to stress, teach them how to handle stress, which is what the heel is for. That's why you said it got better over the course of the week. Then today, I started thinking like, well, it's snowing out, and I know we're gonna need to prepare food with the defensiveness stuff, so you know what, how about we do this instead, so I can do something to work inside. And then he was doing, really well. But then he got too confident, right? Because then he starts thinking like, oh, maybe e-collar's not that bad. And it's not supposed to be bad, but I don't want him getting drivey, especially when we start going to a defensive type of thing, okay? So all we did here is when we tapped and he sent on his own, we feed for sure. But then we have corrections. So once I said, okay, have a seat, and I said, he's gonna move towards you, keep tapping and sending him back, we weren't feeding anymore. Because those weren't sends, those were corrections. So at that point I started getting strict, okay? So I'm feeding, and then somewhere I have to be not the nice guy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then as we repeat this, you're gonna see he's gonna go, oh, when I get the tap and I just go, I get fed. But if I break off without permission, I get corrected and I don't get fed. So if I go for the send and I get fed and I stay there, nothing happens, right? Like that's the math that goes on in the dog's head. And like let's say you have him here for like 10 minutes and you come up to him and you're like, good boy, you could feed him at the end.
Okay.
Because he didn't move for 10 minutes. So you can even do another reward at the very end.
But he has to finish the whole deal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Whenever there's a correction, I don't feed to kind of help differentiate. Now, if you're doing a really long-term place, like you could do 2 hours here, and he gets off like 3 times, but then he does like a 30-minute streak where he doesn't get off, like that's fine. Where you can feed at the end, because that was a pretty good streak, right?
Yeah.
But I wouldn't correct them, and then a minute later after a correction, feed them, and then break them.
Okay, I have 2 questions. So if I want to do the place, should I do the first exercise first to get him used to it, and then do the place?
Correct.
Or are those completely separate?
So you can do them at this like simultaneously,
Uh-huh.
but you have to teach that tap means go here first.
Okay.
So the reason why you're able to send him back easily is because of all the precursor work we did.
Because he already knows that it means go there.
Correct.
Okay.
So that makes that easier. So when you go home and you transfer this to his dog bed, you would do the initial exercise of keeping him away a little bit, waiting, tap, and pressure if needed, and then eventually you'll get the tap and he goes. And then once you get that pretty solid, which takes just a few minutes, then you can push. Now you don't move. Okay. Until I say break, you don't move. And as soon as he goes off, we don't say anything. It's just tap, tap. And ideally, he would just correct himself with very little effort from us, because you're trying to put everything to the remote, because that's when we're going to have him down the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And if you can have more than one place within the home. You can have one in the living room, one in the dining room, whatever. He will go by context. So if you're like in the living room and you say place versus in the kitchen, he's going to go to the one relative to that room. You can also have one place that you just move around, and he'll learn to recognize the object. So that if you move it from the bedroom to the living room, and he'll go and you say place, he'll like, oh, and it just came from the bedroom, like you'll see it in the living room, go, oh, here it is, and you go there, okay? If you end up teaching a secondary place, a different object, you then have to reteach him with that object. And so he understands that this is also place. So if you keep one in your car for like when you go out with him or something, you have to teach him what that is first, and then you'd be able to use it out in public.
Okay.
Okay? Questions?
Am I supposed to be using the verbal commands at this point?
We're going to start that now.
Okay. Is
So-
he going to get so that's going to keep him from getting confused as to what the tap means in any given context? Is that the plan?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the way dogs interpret the remote is according to what's going on in life at the moment. So if you're out on the sidewalk, what do you think tap would mean?
Walk here.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you come to a stop, he's supposed to automatically say, I can't remember if we taught that or not, but
We didn't.
We
so
didn't?
he just stops.
he just stops. And it's cold right now, so I'm not worried about it. But like, let's say in the springtime, you know, I'm walking with him and they stop. He's supposed to automatically sit. Let's say he forgets. Well, because now we're stationary and he's in a standing position, the world looks a very specific way. So then when we tap him, he's gonna go, oh, boom. Okay, because now just doing that visual from standing to sitting, that shift is what helps him interpret what the tap means without any words. So if you're in a room with a dog bed, and that's the only thing you've ever taught him with the remote in that space, he's gonna assume I go to the dog bed. Okay, but yes, the word is to help clarify things for him.
Okay.
So like if we had like a bunch of stuff here, like I said, place, chair, you know, shelf, and he knew how to hop on each one of them, I would teach him the same with pressure, but then I would name them differently. Right?
Okay.
So, and you can use whatever word you like. We use place. If you use go to bed or bed at home, you can use that phrase.
Okay.
So what's gonna happen now is everything's gonna stay the same. But now you're gonna say your phrase first, you're gonna keep still. So you would say place, and then if no response within like a split second, then the tap, and then he should send, and then the reward.
Okay, so I say place when I'm like doing the walking around and I want him to go there.
Correct, but you're gonna do that from a stationary position.
Right.
So you'll do your walk around, come to a stop, pause, place.
And
no
then break means he can get off.
Correct.
And otherwise he stays.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Go ahead.
Break?
Good.
He was very excited about that.
Place.
Place.
Or whatever word you're gonna use, sorry.
Oh, can I say, well, it's not his bed, so he might not.
Oh, but you can use the same phrase, and then when you go home, like let's say you say bed at home, you can say bed here, right?
Okay.
And then when you go home, it would just be the same process. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Yeah.
So
Break?
yeah.
Break?
Good.
Okay. I'm gonna do bed because he kind of knows it.
Sure.
We'll see. Go to bed.
Okay. There you go. Good.
Go ahead, feed him.
Yes.
Break. Good boy. I need more treats. Hold on.
Here.
Pause.
I got some right here
Oh,
from earlier.
thank you.
Yep.
Go to bed.
Tap. 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 Yep, tap. There you go. Good. Perfect.
Good boy.
Good. That one took longer. Tap. Tap. Good. No reward here. That one took longer because he went into flight mode. So then you had to like override the flight mode, but you would still feed as normal because he didn't go then break off. He did do the send, so we would feed him normally, but then he hopped back off again, so then you would correct him, but no reward.
So that's rewarding him because he's doing what I wanted to do, even though it took him a minute.
Correct.
That was a correction.
Correct.
The second time, so we don't feed.
Correct, because he hopped off without permission.
Right. Break. Let's go that way. Go to bed.
Right, good.
Good boy.
We'll do 3 more.
Break. Go to bed. Good boy.
Good job. Perfect.
Break. Go to bed. Nice try.
Good. Couple more. Ready.
I did tap. Should I tap again?
This is okay. We're gonna ignore this for now.
Okay.
Just
Break.
because we're doing repetitive.
Okay. Break.
And like, oh, there you go. Good. If it were to have been like go there, don't move for a bit,
Uh-huh.
then you go to correct that.
Okay. Go to bed.
Beautiful.
Good boy.
And one more.
Break. Go Go to bed.
Good.
Boy.
Now here, we're gonna pause, we're gonna keep him on the bed. Did you have the tap for those last two?
No.
Yeah. Because he responded really quick.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's what we want. We want him to learn you can beat the punch. Which is why every time we do something, we always tap. Because that's actually the motivator. If he thinks every time mom says bed, tap, bed, tap, bed, tap, like it's that quick of a sequence, he wants to beat the punch, so it makes him move even quicker. Right? So if I say bleh, as I'm getting ready to say the phrase and he's already going, I don't tap.
And
So
that's okay?
That's okay.
Okay.
Because he's learning, if I hear this and I act on it, I can beat the punch. So when we start to apply this to behavior, when you go to pick him up, and he just, like his brain goes into defensiveness. It's literally just goes.
Yeah.
There's no thought process of like, if mom picks me up today, I'm gonna be a jerk, right?
Yeah.
It just happens within a moment. So when we go to correct that stuff, it's pretty much the same kind of concept, where it's defensiveness, tap, and then he goes back like, oh crap, maybe I'm not supposed to do that, right? And we keep repeating that. So eventually, and we're pairing with the food, of course, when I go to pick him up, it's like, you'll literally see like a kind of like flinch, because his brain wants to go, but he's anticipating the tap, so he goes back. Right? So then we go, good, feet. Right? So he's like, oh, cool. Like, if I get picked up, if I become defensive, like a tap. If I don't do anything, nothing happens, and I get rewarded. And we start to shift, how he feels about it. So that's what positive reinforcement is trying to do, is change the underlying emotional state, make the dog feel positive about it. But if there's nothing that says you can't do this part, that the how he feels about it's not going to happen. Okay, it has to be a more complete approach. So this is again the same kind of concept, except this is the to do something as opposed to not do something. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're making things a little bit more difficult. You're going to send him. Once he goes, you're going to walk around.
Okay.
Okay, so we're not
And
going to
he
feed
stays.
immediately. Correct. She's going to do a lap around. If he breaks off, you're going to tap. He's going to go back. Because we're doing something a little bit more complicated, once you're able, like you would, so I walk, he breaks off, I tap, I reset. I try to do another full circle. Once you're able to complete a full circle,
He gets good.
yes.
Okay.
But until you complete it.
Okay.
Break.
Break. Go to bed.
Good. Took his time on that step up, so now walk around. This is okay, because he's within the area. Tap, tap, tap. Good. So now your walk around resets, right? So we'll go ahead and walk around again. This is okay. And right there, you step in.
Good
and feed.
boy.
Perfect.
Break.
Good. And repeat.
He's in no hurry now. What? Go to bed.
Tap. Right. Good. Perfect.
Good boy.
3 more.
Break. Go to bed.
Tap. Right. Tap. 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 Perfect. Good. And reset. Tap. Tap. You're at 7, right?
I'm at 8.
Let's go with 9.
Okay. I forgot where I started, so you'll
Just right there. Perfect.
Good boy.
And then 1 more.
Break. He's gonna sleep for so long after this.
Maybe a food coma on hand, this is a food coma.
This is the thing about old dogs. He has like only a limited amount of energy. Go to bed.
10. 10.
No,
10.
you didn't earn that yet.
Good. Now here you're gonna feed, and then we're gonna keep them there for a moment, okay? Perfect. So here, just now breaking away from the real easy stationary stuff and adding a little bit more distraction. Is there anything in the house he hates, like a broom, vacuum?
He doesn't love the vacuum or hair dryer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does he get defensive with it, or does he just run away
No,
from
he
it?
hides. He runs and hides
Okay.
behind like whatever.
Gotcha. So what I would do here is you'll be fine with 2, maybe 3 times a day. This exercise, super short, 2 to 3 minutes, okay? And then build off of where you left off. And then so you like just go back a step. So the next time you work with him, I wouldn't do the send and the walk around.
Mm-hmm.
I would do the send from 2 to 3 feet away, changing angles, because that's like the step before this.
Yep.
And then go to send and walk around, okay? And then once you feel like he's getting really good, because you can still see where he's actively wanting to like be attentive to you.
Yeah.
What you'll start to see as you repeat this is he'll just kind of go and assume nothing's going to happen, and just like go into a resting state, okay? So 2 to 3 minutes on the sending stuff. You can make like go around one direction and then come back around the other direction and then feed, make it a little bit more complicated. The next thing you could do, and this is really more so to just push stress levels, okay? Is if he doesn't like the vacuum, you would send him, have the leash on, and then don't turn it on, but just bring the vacuum out. Just start to move it around, and then he's gonna go, and he's gonna want to flight, and then you would, use a remote and the leash to guide him back, and again with an off vacuum, okay? And you're probably gonna see a lot of shaking and stuff.
I don't know if he'll react to it off, but I'll try it.
Okay,
Yeah.
try it off first, and even if it looks really good, do a couple sessions with it off. And then progress to turning it on, but turning it on at a distance, okay? And see what happens. So,
Maybe I'll do the hair dryer because I can turn it on low. It has like more
oh sure, yeah,
settings.
that works too.
Yeah.
And of course, further and then closing in.
Yeah.
So here, we're intentionally exposing them to stress to teach them how to handle stress, okay? So it's controlled context. You can also use food here, okay, if you'll take it. If you find he doesn't take the treats, you can use your fancy cheese because it is technically a more, for him, complex, right? Because there's an emotional state involved. So then he may need a little bit more incentive. And then expect to maybe have to raise your number. So if you're using the hairdryer and he keeps going off and you can barely keep him on for a second, just go up 9, 10, 11. And so eventually you find the number that's going to override him. And he goes, hey, I don't like that hairdryer, but I have to sit still. So we're teaching him, so even though you don't like something, you have to accept it. Okay, and it's something, and again, it's non-invasive, it's not going in his personal space, but it's still something he doesn't like. Okay, so this is like our reference point for him, and it's going to be the reference point for like everything else kind of going forward once we start to go into behavioral stuff. Okay. Questions about any of this so far?
No, I think this is going to be fun. It's going to be a fun game.
When it comes to duration work, so you could go home today and you could do like another 2 to 3 minute session of this later on, and you could already do like an hour of duration work if you want, because it's not redundant. Okay, the redundant stuff we keep shorter because dogs get frustrated.
Yeah.
But since you're just sending them there for an hour and a half, whatever, 30 minutes, as long as he's there, nothing happens. Okay, so you're able to already do that off the bat.
One question, I know I asked you this and you answered it, but I forgot what you said. Sorry. For the duration stuff, do I need to warm him up with the like scent?
Oh no.
Okay, no.
Yeah.
Those are can be
So the purpose of the scents here are so that later on when you're going to do duration, go to your bed. Boop. He just goes.
He just knows what it means.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So and then like let's say he does a really bad one. Don't worry about going like, you know what, we're going to do a few and then do duration. Just do your duration, okay? Because the 2 to 3 minute sessions you're going to do will eventually clear it up. It typically takes dogs like 2 to 3 days to get it pretty down packed. And actually, before I forget, towards the end, he started going but then not going. You know why that is?
No.
Because there was no tap.
Oh.
Right? Because once he started learning I can avoid the tap, he started pressing the rules. Okay, so that's normal.
But so then he learned that if he doesn't do it, he gets the tap anyway.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if we see him, because some dogs, their logic is, well, if I can just deviate a little bit, I'll just keep deviating. Isn't I just keep that tap, I can guarantee for the first couple of weeks, regardless of how he responds. So he thinks like, holy crap, there is no option but to just move and complete the task. Okay, so there's no right or wrong, but that's completely normal.
But he's boundary pushing.
Yeah, because what happens is, it's like you say go to your bed, and he's like, but do I have to? Right? Because there was no hit, there was no tap.
Yeah.
So then it makes him question. So then we of course just reinforce it. You can always increase the power a little bit as well to incentivize him, like you don't want to question this. And in that session, you could be at 11 or whatever. And then for him, it's just creating that urgency of like, okay, I don't want to question because I really don't want 11 to get tapped on 11. Okay? Other questions?
So I've been just putting the e-collar on and then to walk him and then taking it off. I've basically been putting it on anytime we leave the apartment and then taking it off when we get back in. So should I just be putting it on and then taking it off before and after these exercises, or should I be leaving it on him a little bit during the day? Like what's
I
the
see what you're
limit
saying.
on that?
So
That was a very not direct way to ask that question.
I always advise that people put a gap between putting it on and training and taking it off.
Okay.
Right? 15 minutes if you can.
15?
Yeah, so like put on 15 minutes and then do your training, and then leave it on another 15 minutes and then remove it.
So he doesn't think it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, dogs get collar smart because it's very obvious there's two things in the neck, right? But it can help just expose him a bit more. If you feel like his energy towards the collar is fine, it's gotten better, then you don't have to worry so much about it, because that's the other reasoning behind it, is that it just doesn't become a direct sequence the dog picks up on. So either way is fine. Now that you're going to be doing more stuff with him with the collar on, do remember that 2-hour rule, right? Because if you leave it on for longer than 2 hours, they can develop pressure sores. Or if you always put it on the same spot. So I would suggest that people switch sides whenever they put it on, and then of course rotate if you're going to be doing extended work with them. And the last option, of course, is always that adapter is meant for extended use, and as long as he doesn't have sensitive skin or anything, it's meant for 24/7 wear. So it kind of takes off that pressure, like, oh, I gotta remember to rotate it every 2 hours, or making sure I put it in a different spot each time, or else we get pressure sores. So it's another option for you. Okay? Other questions?
Cool. No, we don't have.
Good. So I think you did really good today. Other stuff is normal. And then with your heel, or with the leash walking, keep doing that when you can. Don't worry about incorporating food there. Okay? Just incorporate the food for this stuff, and then the stuff we cover, like for instance, if he jumps on you, or if he jumps on something you don't want him to jump on, just to kind of add something in there. How's the reactivity been?
I mean, we haven't run into that many dogs. We just haven't run into that many dogs. Outside, the like 2 dogs we've seen, he has not reacted to. When like at a distance. He did ride in the elevator with a big dog recently, which was pretty big. But then he growled at a tiny French bulldog. So.
What was the energy?
The French bulldog. He kind of came in his space.
Sure. Was he like, very French bulldog? Yeah, that's why he growled.
So, I don't know if it's better or worse. It's just hard to tell.
Sure. Keep an eye on it. And the French bulldog growl, that's why I asked the first thing, because I know Frenchies and their energy.
Yeah.
They tend to be pretty intense.
Yeah. It really depends on the dog, because there was this old basset hound that was off leash, which I hate when people do that in the building, but he was off leash in the building and started walking towards him, and I kind of grabbed him and was like, hey, my dog's not super friendly, could you grab your dog? He was like, oh yeah, sorry, he's too friendly. But he was fine because he was kind of old and just.
Sure, not threatening.
Anyway, I don't know.
Yeah, so when you work with them this week, if you have any opportunities to pass by dogs and stuff, put yourself in it, because that's the only way we'll know for sure. We'll keep an eye on it. But otherwise, I think so far he's doing really good, especially after today. So,
great.
Good job.
Oh, I have a muzzle question.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, are we going to need a muzzle next week?
You can bring it with you to have, and because I play it by ear.
Okay.
If you're like, hey, didn't get to work that much or whatever on what we're doing, then I might push it off and work on something else. Or if it's like, hey, everything's going great, the reactivity, because the other thing is reactivity stuff as well. I don't want to see that either, because it's part of defensiveness. So, because like, think of it this way. Right now he's learning like not to jump on you for comfort and all that stuff, right? So like if he became reactive, which is a defensive behavior, and we're using the e-collar to stop that defensive behavior, it gives us a reference point. And you might say, Jess, I have to go to 13 when you became reactive. I go, okay, cool, we're gonna take that for when we do the picking up exercise, because we have somewhat of a reference point. Does that make sense? And then if you're telling me like, yeah, 13 more, great, stop this reactivity right away, you go, perfect. We're gonna probably just jump to that when we do the other stuff. But you can have it, don't know yet.
Okay, I haven't yet been able to actually hook it on him.
Okay.
He'll stick his nose in it.
Okay.
And I don't want to push it because I know if I make him scared of it,
Oh, sure.
there's
Right,
no
right.
coming back for him.
Yep.
He'll just fight me till the end of the world. So, do you have any suggestions just for how to actually lock him in it without
Sure.
scaring him?
Are
Like
you
how to
using-
make that step?
Are you using treats?
I
or
am,
food?
because it's small, it's hard for him to eat out of.
Okay.
I tried having him eat his food out of it,
Uh-huh.
and it was kind of like, I don't
Okay,
know.
how about we do this? So what you can do is, so the next step is he puts his head in, right?
Yeah,
And you can just grab one strap and come up and then come down.
okay.
Okay, and if you can do a couple of bits of food,
Mm-hmm.
he goes in, boom, a couple of bits more, boom, a couple of bits more. See what I'm saying?
Okay.
So you're repeating, where he puts his face in and then this happens over 5 minutes. And then if you're like, that doesn't bother him, then I go to trying with both. Sometimes you can have both in your fingers and just kind of get him used to this motion. Each time he puts his face in, you just go like this. He pulls his face out, you go like that. And then you refill in, he puts his face in, grab the straps, put over, but you're not snapping them. You're just getting him used to this happening.
Okay.
If all that's going well, then what you can do is you can oversize it. So it's clipped.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have,
But it's not tight.
correct.
Yeah.
And you puts it in, so it's loose, and it might even just like fall off a little bit. And he's just kind of like, what's going on, right? And then you just go to remove it. And also when you go to remove it, you can give a little reward there as well. So
Okay.
you're using every opportunity to feed for something.
I'll use his normal food for that.
Yeah, because it's gonna be a lot of repetitions. And then if you're still kind of struggling with how to proceed further, if you want to know where you're at, you can even take a video and send it to me,
Okay.
and I can review it, and I can either give you the next steps, or we can even do it for like the next session where I can see what you're doing,
Okay.
and then kind of show you all the individual steps of how I progress them.
Okay.
Yeah, but there's no rush on the muzzle,
Okay.
because if you push too much too soon,
I know.
you're correct, you will take a big step back. You can always recover, but it just prolongs the period.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
anything else?
Cool. No.
Awesome.
So we probably won't be muzzle ready next week, but
Yeah, that's why I tell everybody start as soon as
Right.
possible,
Yeah.
because every dog is different.
Yeah.
Okay, and especially if he's already got touch sensitivity,
Mhm.
we're expecting it might even take longer, so it's not a problem.
look at how good you're doing. Okay, break.
Good.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.